Imagine. It's a calm February day in 1996. Over the Caribbean's blue waters, two civilian planes sail through the skies. Suddenly, a threat looms. Cuban MiGs, like birds of prey, dart through the sky, hunting their prey. These civilian planes, part of the Noble Brothers to the Rescue, are on a mission of mercy rescuing refugees. Get ready. We're diving into the storm that stirred the peaceful February day, causing waves of shock worldwide. The date was February 24th, 1996, a day that would live in infamy and stir up an international storm. But how did we get here? And what led to this terrible tragedy? This isn't just a tragic tale of lives lost, it's a brazen defiance of international law. A high-stakes gamble on the international stage, a devastating failing of American intelligence, and a riddle that, even years later, still begs the question: how did Cuba get away with shooting down two U.S. planes over international waters? To fully grasp our story, we've got to roll back the years all the way back to post-Cold War Cuba. Imagine being the last kid on the block after the big block party, aka the Soviet Union, has left. Not fun, right? Cubans were in a bind. The economy was on a slide, and daily life tougher than an overcooked steak. Meanwhile, over in the US of A, a group of Cuban exiles was forming the Brothers to the Rescue. Not a band, but a group of skybound knights. Their dragons? Cessna planes. These brothers weren't just up for a joyride. Their mission? Scanning the choppy Caribbean waters, playing real-life Where's Waldo with rafts of Cubans fleeing their homeland and guiding them to safety. Beats any day at the office, doesn't it? And man, did these guys get famous! Their wild rescues were all over the news. Even the bigwigs in US government were giving them a thumbs up. But as their star rose, so did the temperature of Cuba's hot-headed government. In this real-life thriller, our brothers had no idea they were about to become the main act. The stage was set, the actors ready, and the world totally clueless. To grasp the magnitude of the tempest that was February 24th, 1996, we need to buckle up. Pop your popcorn, folks. We're about to dive headfirst into the eye of the storm. Flash forward to February 24th, 1996. Another routine day, another mercy mission for Brothers to the Rescue. But the idyllic calm was about to be shattered. From out of the blue, Cuban MiGs swooped in. The pilots, cold and ruthless, were out for blood. Before the brothers could react, they were in the crosshairs. The peaceful skies turned into a deadly war zone. The brothers, unarmed and unprepared, were ambushed. The shots rang out and two civilian planes were blasted out of the sky. In an instant, the world was plunged into chaos. The news spread like wildfire. Cuban jets had shot down two U.S. planes in international airspace, an unprecedented act of aggression. 4 lives were lost that day. Carlos Costa, Armando Alejandre Jr., Mario de la Peña, and Pablo Morales. Heroes who were just out on a mission to save lives became victims in a deadly game of international politics. The peaceful Caribbean waters bore witness to a shocking tragedy. The ripple effect was immediate, and it sparked an international crisis. But how did we get here? And what led to this senseless act of violence? Unraveling the threads of this incident, we reveal a tale of defiance, deceit, and the devastating failing of American intelligence. It's a high-stakes game that Cuba played and won. And the million-dollar question: how did they manage to get away with such an audacious act? After the disaster, a wave of anger spread worldwide. From all over, shock and disbelief came, putting Cuba under heavy scrutiny. The world agreed. Cuba had broken international law, turning the peaceful skies into a war zone. This attack was more than an act of aggression. It was a challenge to the peace that the world works hard to maintain. But as the story spread, doubt began to rise. Quiet talk started to form a troubling idea. Could it be that the US knew about the danger but did nothing? Could they have seen what was coming between the brothers and the Cuban MiGs, yet allowed the tragedy to happen? What is still hidden from that tragic day? As the dust settled, figures in the political sphere started making shocking claims. Dan Burton, a congressman at the time, didn't hold back his accusations.
46 minutes. MiGs were heading toward the United States, and not one F-16 was set up. There's a serious breach of security that needs to be explained by the U.S. Air Force, by the Defense Department, and we need to find out why all this happened.
Burton's words were harsh and heavy. He believed that MiGs were closing in on U.S. airspace and that no response was made. No F-16s were dispatched. A grave security breach, he claimed, that needed answers.
Why were U.S. military aircraft not sent to protect U.S. civilian aircraft, even after a U.S. Customs radio officer placed an emergency call to the United States Air Force?
But it didn't stop with Burton. A pivotal figure emerged, someone who claimed to have sent out warnings about the flight.
Pilots were sitting on their airplanes with their engines running, ready to go and assist our planes, and never ordered to leave. That, in my book, creates a situation of complicity.
He had warned U.S. officials both the day before and the morning of the flight not to allow the brothers to the rescue to take off. Yet, his warnings fell on deaf ears.
Brothers to the Rescue was an obstacle in the relations between Cuba and the United States, and since the government of the United States under Bill Clinton could do nothing legally against us, they decided to let something illegal take place.
Jeffrey Houlihan, a radar operator with the U.S. Customs, gave an alarming first-hand account. According to him, there were pleas for action, yet no go signal was given.
Later on, in personal conversations with people who were associated with the air defense group, I said, look, I know you guys. I know fighter pilots. I know you wanted to go after those Cuban interceptors. You lived for this opportunity. And the comment I got back was, yeah, we did want to go. In fact, the boss was pounding, literally pounding on the console, asking for permission to launch.
Even more damning was the testimony from Jorge Lars. In the past, warnings were sent when MiGs were near, but that day, silence. No warning, no communication. Did someone know more than they were letting on?
There had been instances in the past where there were MiGs in the Straits of Florida, and we would receive calls from F-16s suggesting we turn around and report back to Yopalak Airport. That day, we didn't receive any calls or any radio communication advising us that there were MiGs in the area and that there was a hostile environment.
Could this all be a failure to act? A breakdown in communication? Or could there have been a more chilling choice at play? Let's shake things up a bit. Let's meet someone who wouldn't be out of place in a spy thriller. Meet Ana Belen Montes, a riddle wrapped in a mystery. On the surface, Montes was just another employee at the Defense Intelligence Agency. Her peers saw her as dependable and dedicated, known for her no-nonsense attitude. With remarkable speed, she advanced through the ranks, eventually becoming the DIA's most senior Cuban analyst. But the truth? Far more sinister. On paper, a senior analyst at the Defense Intelligence Agency. Off the record, one of the most damaging spies in U.S. history. The twist? Her allegiance wasn't with Uncle Sam. Montes used encrypted messages to communicate with the Cuban intelligence service, received instructions through encrypted shortwave transmissions from Cuba, and even used public phones in DC and Maryland for coded numeric pager messages. But here's the real stinger. Montes had been working for Cuba even before she joined the DIA in 1985. This makes us wonder, could her influence have reached the blue skies over the Caribbean Sea on that tragic day? Her actions seem to paint a picture far more complex than we originally thought. A picture that may hold the answers to the tragedy. As we delve deeper into this labyrinth, we find Ana Belen Montes at the core, the invisible puppet master pulling the strings from the shadows. Her deft manipulation of information and strategic placement within the Defense Intelligence Agency allowed her to shape events from within the highest echelons of U.S. intelligence. What if Cuba did attempt to warn the U.S. about the impending catastrophe? The evidence suggests that they did. But the crucial element here is timing. The warning came only a day before the incident. Was it too late or perfectly timed? Did the labyrinthine nature of the bureaucratic chain of command delay the warning, or was it orchestrated to appear so? The presence of Montes within the DIA paints a disturbing picture. Through her, Cuba had an unseen influence, a ghost in the machine. Montes made sure the warning arrived too late for any meaningful action to be taken. Because of this carefully choreographed timing, the U.S. was caught off guard, unable to react or reprimand. Montes's intervention effectively shielded Cuba, allowing them to avoid the brunt of international consequences. This story is a stark reminder of the hidden power of intelligence and how one person, working behind the scenes, can have a drastic impact on world events. And that's Ana Belen Montes, a quiet analyst on the outside, a formidable player on the inside, her actions echoing far and wide. In the chess game of international politics, Montes made her moves silently, but they resonated louder than any explosion.